Welcome to the third of 5 AIDN summer series sessions. We're going to do a short AIDN information and update, especially for those that it might be your first session joining us, and we are so excited that you're joining us. It looks like we have a good little crowd today, and I know there's a lot of things going on with summer, and especially with getting close to the end of a academic year and getting ready for a new one starting up. So we are most appreciative that you are here with us and able to connect and keep on building this community. So AIDN, as we like to call ourselves, or the Alabama Instructional Design Network, we came together to be able to provide networking, hopefully mentoring, and provide resource opportunities for instructional designers across the state. So we came together to try to build something where we can all build a greater community to be able to work together and collaborate. It started off with our board members. Courtney Felton is the co-chair. I am Catherine Jarnigan, the other co-chair. Crystal Mealer is our fabulous communications coordinator. She's the one that sends out our emails and does our social media. Courtney Garza is our membership coordinator, and Janelle Hodges is our activities coordinator. Some of these titles might change as we're working on getting all the legal paperwork done for the group, but as it stands, that's kind of who's doing what right now. Past, present, and future activities. We had our first networking event at Samford back in March, I believe. It was awesome to be able to get to see people face to face. So we had our first networking activity then. We're currently working on our bylaws so that we can become a registered legal entity in the state. We're hoping to get everything done as to be a nonprofit. We're rocking and rolling with the summer series. As you know, since you are here, we have 2 more sessions coming up. So hopefully you can join us for those later in the summer. And then we're working to try to put together a fall event. Once we get some more solid details on that will be coming up. So today, I'm actually interested in this one so very much. We are going to be hearing from Mary Earley about using Zoom and GoReact to foster connectivism. And Mary has worked as an educational program specialist with Project Crest at UAB. She has her MA and EDS in secondary education, English and Spanish. She has 27 years of experience in the K-12 environment, 5 years experience in higher education. She's currently pursuing an MS in instructional design at UAB. Her professional interests include engagement, coaching, connectivism, and her personal interests are traveling, long weekend road trips, reading, experimenting with crafts, and making jam. Right now, I'm going to turn this over to you, Mary.
All right. I did change the title just a little bit. I changed it to Exploring Connectivism in a Virtual Environment. What I want to talk to you today about how I am applying connectivism, which is a new theory for teaching and learning in a connected world. And the impact of technology in our world has changed everything. It's changed how we live, how we communicate, and how we learn. And all of those things, which used to be relatively separate, are now all together because of the way we're able to be connected with technology. And some of the trends in learning, and this comes from the work of George Siemens, I hope I said that correctly, but he talks about informal learning and formal learning are not separate anymore. We are connected. We carry our devices with us everywhere we go. So when we want to know something, we just pop it up and learn right there, just-in-time learning. And learning occurs in a variety of ways. We have communities of practice, personal networks, and the completion of work-related tasks. It's a continual process, and the tools that we now use are reshaping the way we think and the way we learn. Know how and know what is now supplemented with know where, meaning know where to go to find that information. And a quote from Karen Stevenson is, "Experience has long been considered the best teacher of knowledge. Since we cannot experience everything, other people's experiences and hence other people become the surrogate for knowledge." So that kind of captures what Connectivism is all about, that we share knowledge, and what we don't have, we connect with other people that have that knowledge, and so we become a big learning community. Another thing to consider is our blended audience. At least in my context with the people I work with in our program, we have digital immigrants and digital natives, and we think about things a little bit differently. And we have the class that I'm going to talk to you about today that I have implemented this with Zoom and GoReact. Our age range is 25 to 65 of the students in the class. So we have a big range of experience with technology and a big range of the way people approach learning. So that's one thing that we need to consider when we're designing instruction or designing online courses. So the context for this little action research that I've been doing this summer is I work at UAB in the teacher education program, and it's an established program. We just recently celebrated our 20 years of the program's initiation. And we have a reputation for rigor and relevance. We have several different options of degrees that people can pursue and 2 different tracks. We currently have candidates from all over the state, and we have in the past had candidates from other states who we did some things to help them be able to participate digitally in the classes. We do have currently a variety of delivery models, and I'll talk to you about those in a minute, but the one reason the program has grown so exponentially is that we've been supported through the years by national professional development grants from the U.S. Department of Education, which help teachers with tuition support. So that means a lot of times we have 20 or 30 people in a cohort going through the program. So that's one reason we've been able to grow. But we recently did an analysis of our program and what we need to do. And so I'm calling this an opportunity. Our current program, again, we have a reputation for rigor and effectiveness, and we have a variety of instructional formats. We have some face-to-face classes, some blended classes, and some online classes. But the hallmark of our program are our professional learning communities. In our blended classes, and even sometimes in our face-to-face classes, 4 or 5 people are in a PLC and they bond and they are close throughout the program. But something that we've had to consider recently is the future of our program. Students, of course, you can't have a program without students, and the grants that we have depended on for a while to bring in great numbers of students, they work on a 5-year basis, and at the end of every 5 years, if they announce new grant competitions, you have to write grants and you have to be awarded them. So what happens if the department doesn't get another grant? We do have students in our program that are not supported by the grant, but will that be enough to maintain the program? So we're going to have to think about expanding our market. And if we're going to expand our market, not only throughout the United States, but maybe even internationally, we're going to have to offer an online delivery format. So that's where we are thinking about how we're going to take the classes that we currently have that are face-to-face and blended, and how we're going to revise them and put them in an online format. So the challenges, the way we see the challenges of this is how do we convert these existing face-to-face and blended courses to an online format? And we want to preserve the sense of the learning community that exists in our program. But we also know that we have to embrace the opportunities of designing courses in the digital age. To be competitive, even for people who live in the Birmingham area, some of them prefer an online environment for the convenience. So we have to consider that, and we have to be ready and be marketable. Now that I'm pursuing my degree in instructional design, and I've always been involved in designing professional development in my career in K-12 and even here in my current position, so that just is a good opportunity for me to work with the faculty in our program with what I'm learning and going with what they're learning. So I looked at this as an opportunity this summer, the classes that we're teaching this summer, how can I do some practice in using some of these tools that will help us to create that online learning environment and you see how I changed it from practice to action research. So I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity. So this is where I started. First, we need to consider the tools and resources that we have available in our context. So our classes are on Canvas, and embedded in Canvas, we have lots of wonderful tools that can help us to design online courses or virtual course experiences. We have Zoom and GoReact and Kaltura. And another thing that I've considered, and anyone else in my position would consider, is what support do you have? And we're very fortunate at UAB that we have phenomenal ID support. We have, and I hope it's okay if I say people's names, give people credit, but in our department in the School of Education, we have Dr. Janelle Hodges, which is a great support, great coach for our teachers. And also we have the Center for Teaching and Learning. And I've been going to workshops on Zoom and GoReact and Kaltura to learn more about these and how I can implement them. And we also have the opportunity to get personal one-on-one support. And we have a great teacher, Jared Watson, who works in the program, and he's met with me individually. He's even come and helps me practice with the equipment. So we have a lot of support to help us in this endeavor. So what were my opportunities for practice? So I wanted to try dual participation, where you had some people sitting in the room face-to-face and some people who were entering by Zoom, to see if some of our face-to-face courses could have participants that were not able to come to campus. How could they participate in the class? And then I wanted to experiment with some virtual class meetings. And in those virtual class meetings, I also wanted to see if we could bring in guest speakers that would connect virtually to the class. So those are some of the things that I experimented with. So I call this warm up to the big event. I really wanted to implement these tools in the class that I'm teaching this summer. But before the class, I had a professional development meeting scheduled. Part of our program, we have an internship at the end of the program, and I was bringing in the internship supervisors who would be supervising the interns for a professional development and to all practice using the evaluation instrument and make sure we're all on the same page. So I had 3 participants that needed to be at this meeting that live in the Huntsville area. Well, it was a Saturday meeting and Saturday morning, and the meeting was going to be about an hour. So to drive from Huntsville to Birmingham, I guess about 2.5, 3 hour drive for an hour meeting was just not feasible. So this was the perfect opportunity for me to test this equipment and test this context. And so all participants, I think, had the same experience. What we did, what you see in this picture is the room that we have here on campus that is set up for this very thing. And you can see me in the background, and I am conducting the meeting. We had about 7 people that are sitting in the classroom, and we had 3 people that joined us through Zoom. And this is what I'm showing here. And when you see a yellow star in the corner, these are what I'm calling the keepers. These are the things that went well in my experiments that I would like to continue to use. So everybody introduced themselves. So you see the camera set up in the room, so you can see, you can move the camera to show what you want to show. And so you see one of the live participants there, and she's introducing herself. And in the background, you see one of the virtual participants, and he's able to see what's going on in the classroom and also participate. And they were able to introduce themselves. I did hide people's faces because I didn't ask these people permission that were in the class and in the workshop, so I didn't think it would be appropriate because I knew this would be recorded. So then here's the first blooper, all these blooper alerts. Don't forget to share the screen when you need to share the screen. In this environment where you have the camera and you have the whole class, and then you're having to manipulate what you're doing with the class, and you're also having to think about what the people that are entering through Zoom are seeing. So what we were doing is we were watching videos of a teacher teaching. We were practicing evaluating the teaching, and the ones who were sitting there live were seeing the TV, the screen, but I forgot to share the screen for Zoom. And after we watched the first clip, one of my participants said, "Hey, Mary, is there any way you can show us the screen?" So that first picture on the top is what they were seeing. So I was able to share the screen, and so then they saw the video we were seeing, and it filled up their whole screen. So that's just something to keep in mind, that you have to be conscious of what's going on the screen and what your viewers are seeing. The big event was implementing these tools in the class that is currently still going on. So I call this building the plane as we fly it. So this was a term that we used to use when I was in K-12, because the State Department was always coming up with something for us to implement, and they were planning it as we implemented it. So I wanted to experiment with virtual class meetings. I wanted to use Zoom to enhance the existing class structure. And part of it was creating a convenient way for students and the guest speakers that we wanted to invite to synchronously participate in the learning community. Also needed to think about providing an asynchronous option, and also wanted to utilize GoReact to facilitate video submission and allow students to be able to share their work and view each other's videos. So the big question for this action research that I'm doing this summer is, how will we convert seminar week experience to an online format? This class that I'm in the process of teaching this summer, the goal is for this class to be totally online next summer. So I'm doing these experiments to see what we can do. This is a blended course. It is online from May to August, but we have a seminar week, which is a week in June, where the participants, the students, come every day, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 to 4:30. And during that seminar week is almost like a mini conference. We have guest speakers and group activities, so they're there for the week. The guest speakers are able to share their expertise. We bring in experts from different areas. The course is actually about policies and laws and curriculum in ESL, so we bring in experts for all the different areas. So we don't want to lose that experience. Most of the classes are already online, and the students are doing activities that they're submitting online. But what were we going to do to maintain that experience of the experts sharing and the students being able to participate with each other? So just a little background, and to share with you the survey that I did. This course is usually designed to be the second or third class that people take in the degree program. It's not always, so this just shows you most of the students, this is the first, second, or third class that they've had, so they're new to the program. I wanted to know which learning environments they had already experienced, and most of them had experienced all of the three that we offer: face-to-face, blended, and online. And I wanted to know which one they preferred. So I'm sure you can see what I'm seeing by looking at this, the answer to this. Blended, they prefer because a lot of them still like having that opportunity to get to know the instructor face-to-face, but some of them do prefer online. One person had no preference. And then I asked, what type of instructional groupings do you prefer? And the majority of them prefer to work in groups. So this is my reflection on those results. Most students have experienced all three of the formats, but none of them prefer the face-to-face weekly format. It's just not convenient. When the option is out there, we have to embrace the digital world and the option that everyone wants to have that opportunity for the convenience of taking classes on their own time. They did like the blended classes, and they do prefer to interact with partners in groups. So collaboration is valued. I also looked at, as I've been researching, I found an article by Paula Bigatel and Stephanie Edel Malaysia, where they talk about the indicators of engaged learning online. And so these are three things that stood out to me that we're trying to maintain in our courses: the social emotional aspect, the strong ties to the community of learners, the cognitive aspect to actually interact with the content and develop higher order thinking, and that behavioral piece where they are participating in the class and interacting with instructions with the instructors and the peers. So I experimented with 2 virtual class meetings. It was the first meeting and the last meeting. Both of them ended up being synchronous participation, even though I did record them and they were going to have the option to view them, but surprisingly enough, everybody did attend synchronously. The first meeting has always been a virtual class meeting on the course schedule. Because of the number of students that we have in our grant program, the way we process tuition, the tuition doesn't post to the student's account until the first scheduled class meeting. So if we didn't have the first scheduled class meeting in June, then the tuition wouldn't be posted. So we've always had that virtual class meeting, which was just on the class schedule. But nothing happened that day. Every once in a while, somebody would show up at UAB. So I thought this is a great opportunity to actually have a virtual class meeting. So I scheduled it the first week of the semester in May, and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because most of our candidates are practicing teachers. And so that worked out really well. And then our last meeting, I really wanted to experiment with the breakout rooms feature in Zoom and to see if it would be feasible to have guest speakers. And that meeting lasted about 2.5 hours, which was really too long for a Zoom meeting, but the whole purpose of this was for me to learn. So here are my recommendations to think about when you're scheduling a virtual class meeting. Make sure you're familiar with the equipment. I had different rooms that I could go to for different purposes, whether I had a group, the room that you saw in that earlier picture where it's set up to have a group of people sitting there like a class. There's also conference rooms that has equipment where the camera shows the whole room, or you may choose to use your laptop. But I did practice with the equipment in each of the rooms that I was going to be using just to make sure that I knew how to do it. And you need to consider the purpose of the meeting or the class, the duration, 30 minutes, an hour, what's going to be appropriate, especially if you want your students to attend synchronously. Anything more than 30 or 45 minutes or even an hour is not feasible, I don't think. And the attendance, consider if you want to make it required that people attend synchronously, or you want them to be able to see it on their own time. And on a totally online environment, I'm not sure you can require that everyone attend synchronously. So consider the settings. I'm going to show you those in a minute. Consider the camera view. That's part of testing the equipment. You need to be aware of what the camera is showing the participants if you're using the camera feature. And always be conscious of what's showing on the screen, whether you need to share your screen or whether you need to mute a participant or stop a participant's video. Just be aware of what's going on the screen. And then always set the meeting to record. Even if you don't end up sharing it or publishing it, it's always good to have that. So my first meeting, I call this Lessons Learned. So these were the settings that I used. So you see on video, it has host and participant both on. And then I checked mute participants upon entry. So you really need to think about, do you want to see and or hear participants when they enter the meeting? We usually mute participants upon entry as something that's standard, but I didn't even think about the video. What happened is, as each participant enters, you see their face, and if they move or do anything, their face fills the whole screen, which doesn't always work out well. And then do you want participants to join before you start the meeting? So I thought, hey, yeah, I will enable them to join before the host. That way, if something happens and I don't get there at the beginning of the meeting, they can go ahead and get in. Well, that was a mistake, but that's something you'll have to consider on your own. So this is my next blooper. So what happened, one of my students, I guess he just wanted to make sure he wasn't familiar with the equipment. I had enabled him to join before I joined. So basically, on the video, I have his face for 25 minutes. So I was, of course, able to edit that out before I published the video for the class. So that's what happens when you enable them to enter before you're ready for the meeting to start. And they may or may not be aware that they're being recorded because you haven't put that there yet. So that's just something to consider. And another thing is, again, make sure that you know what's on the screen. In this situation, as I'm talking to the students, I was demonstrating to them how you could stop the video and it would just show your name. And I forgot to begin sharing again. So I'm showing them what the textbook looks like. I'm holding up the textbook to the camera so they can see what it looks like, to make sure they have the correct edition. And of course, someone finally told me, we can't see anything but your name. So just be aware of that you want to know what you want them to see and make sure that's what's showing. That introductory meeting, we just went over the syllabus. It lasted about 30 minutes, but it worked really well. Then meeting 2 was the big meeting at the end of seminar week. Now this one, you can imagine whether you live 30 minutes away or 3 hours away, or we even had one student who was coming from South Alabama. It's a long week, seminar week, 8:30 to 4:30 every day. So after the week started, although we had already planned to do this might have been a cruel trick, but they were excited in the end. We informed them that Friday, they wouldn't have to come to UAB, that we were going to do another virtual class meeting where they would attend class from home, and we would have the guest speakers and we would test some things. So they were very excited about that. But as I had learned not to enable join before host, so this time I enabled the waiting room, which can work well if that serves your purpose. But I had 27 people in the class, and what happened is they see, as we did today, participants will see the message, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. And so they were all coming in at the same time, and I was happy. We had a roll that we were checking to see who had entered the meeting. Thank goodness my co-instructor was sitting beside me and we were working on it together. But that's just something else to consider, because when you do enable that, you have to approve each person to enter. And then my guest speakers were coming in at different times, so I had to watch for them to make sure that I allowed them that I let them into the meeting and didn't just leave them hanging out there. So when you set up the meetings, there's just some things to consider. So here's another blooper alert. Be mindful of the way you look on screen, also known as posture. So remember to maintain eye contact with the camera, which is your link to the participants. As I was looking at this, I thought to myself, my mother would be horrified at my posture in this picture and throughout the video. So that's just something to think about, that especially if you're recording the video to be shown later, that there it is. So think about what you look like on the screen. The thing that I enjoyed the most about what we did was the interaction with instructors and peers through the breakout rooms. If you've never experienced this, it worked so well. You are able to we had 27. So if you have a group of 3 or 4 in a meeting, of course, this is not going to work out. But I was able to put the students in breakout rooms of about 4 people for them to discuss something that we were talking about in the class. And as they go into the breakout rooms, then as the instructor, you can move in and out of the breakout rooms, and you can set it up so they can ask a question. They can send a chat to you that we have a question, we need you to enter the room. So that feature worked out really well. There are some guides to how to set up these things and how to use them that I can send the links. If you don't already have them, I can send them, so when they send you the video, you can have those links. Because the job aids for this are great. They walk you through how to do every little thing. So that worked out very well. So here's another part of our survey. So I asked them, did they enjoy participating in the small group breakout? And no disagrees. Almost all of them strongly agreed. So I asked them, did they feel connected to their peers in the Zoom meeting? Again, strongly agree and agree. And here are some of their reflections on that. And I'm not going to read them verbatim. I'll just leave that up there for a few seconds and let you look at some of their responses. So I thought this was a good way to have the students connect with each other. Of course, the students already knew each other because we had been together all week for 4 days doing different interactive activities with different groupings. And so, as you can see, some of them say that really helped because they already knew the people that they were put in the breakout room with. And I did just have the breakout room randomly place students together. You can set it so you can choose who is with who in a group in the breakout room. So I was really pleased with how that worked out. Here's another blooper alert. Be mindful of what you say. When you're putting students in the breakout room, the breakout rooms are not recorded. Obviously, that would be too hard to do. I'm sure that the technology will catch up with that before it's over with. But as the two instructors are sitting there while the students are in the breakout room, Zoom is still recording. So keep that in mind, that what you're saying there, of course, well, I don't think we said anything, but when I watch the video, you can't hear what we're saying. But just something to keep in mind, that it's still recording you. We were going in and visiting the breakout rooms while they were talking, but just something to keep in mind if you use the breakout room function and you're recording your video, your meeting. And then this also worked out very well. As I've mentioned, part of the purpose of Seminar Week is to have guest speakers to come in. And so that still maintaining the strong ties to the community of learners and practitioners. We set up 3 guest speakers, and each one spoke about 30 minutes that day. And you can see one of the guest speakers is at her home, so it was very convenient for her. One of the ones chose to use her PowerPoint. And so you can see that as her PowerPoint is being shared, you can see her in the corner speaking. And then the third speaker was speaking from her office. So that gives you a lot of opportunities and a lot of convenience to bring in guest speakers, and they can share their screen. They can share if they have video clips or something. So that worked out very well, and that showed me that we can maintain that Seminar Week where they're not coming to UAB. We can still have that feature where we have guest speakers. We'll just have to plan how that's going to work. And I'm thinking we wouldn't have to have it all in one week. We could have the speakers throughout the summer, throughout the semester, and then they would be recorded. And so if people chose not to watch them live, in order to have that, be able to ask the guest speaker questions, they could always go back and watch it. And after each guest speaker, we had the students to complete a reflection, and that worked just as well. They completed a reflection on the speakers that they saw through the Zoom meeting. So that worked out very well, and I was very pleased with that. Here's another survey question. I felt connected to my instructors in the Zoom meeting, and they all did. And here's some more reflections. They really enjoyed the Zoom meeting. I think a lot of that was the fact that they didn't have to come to UAB that day. And I understand completely, it's an exhausting week, but they acknowledge, you can see one of the comments, that even though face-to-face instruction is very valuable, we have to look beyond that and find ways that we can maintain that connection to each other, to peers, and to experts in the virtual world, which is what Connectivism is all about. I also wanted to ask how they entered. You can set it up for them to enter in Canvas, which I did, but I always copied the link and sent them the link just in case. You can enter from your phone with the link and just hear the meeting. And also the guest speakers were not in Canvas, so I had to just send the link to them. And everyone found it easy to use. And here are a few more of the student reflections as the end of that survey. So I think it was very successful. I'm looking forward to next summer when this class is totally online and I'm able to utilize these tools. And after what I've learned this summer, I'll do a better job of implementing them. And looking back at that framework, the indicators of engaged learning online, I'm looking at the interacting with the content. They have several activities in the course in which they do that. So one of the assignments that they do is they do a role play assignment, and just, I know I'm running out of time, but quickly, the role play assignment iterations. Originally, it was an in-class presentation. In the past, we had the Seminar Week in June, and then the last Thursday in July, we had everybody come back to UAB, and we had presentations. And for this particular class, the presentation that they did, they had to do a role play that they had written, and that they play the expert on the laws and different things that they've learned in the class, that they're coaching someone else from the school that has questions. So we decided a couple of years ago, schools go back the 1st of August. We just didn't have a good day for them to come back. So we went to having them submit the video. We didn't have the day when they came back in July. We had them submit the role play video. And if you've experienced this at all as an instructor, you know that can be a headache. The way people submit videos, the way they record it, whatever device they record it on. So that is problematic in many ways. And then I was the only one that got to see the video. They didn't get to see each other's. So when I learned about GoReact recently, this year they're submitting the video through GoReact. And it's a tool that's built into Canvas, and it records right into Canvas. If you set it up, they just have to click record, and the video records. It's uploaded, and it also has a feature which I've enabled that they will be able to see each other's videos and do a peer review of each other's videos. I don't have any examples of that because they're not due until later in July. So I don't have examples yet to show today, but I'm really excited about looking at those videos and them being able to see each other's again and to react to each other's. So that's all I have to share with you today. I just wanted to share my experience of implementing some of the tools that I've been learning about and how I'm looking towards and getting some experience in designing online learning. Any questions, or if you know more about these tools that you could share with me, or comments about what we did in this research this summer?
I think it's great. I personally am very interested in when you have some of them in the classroom and then some of them who are attending virtually. But I know that sometimes that takes a lot of tech setup. It sounds like you were fortunate enough to have a room that was already set up for just that purpose. So that's great.
And I had the great support of somebody helping me learn how to do it and coming and working with me. So that helped a lot.
Now, you had mentioned Kaltura also at the beginning of your presentation. How did you use that did you use that at all with Zoom, or how did that pull in?
I used in Kaltura is where you edit the videos. When you have it recorded through Zoom, you can open it through My Media in Canvas and open it in Kaltura, and that's where you can edit the videos and clip out parts. So right now, that's the only way I've used Kaltura, but there's other features that you can do. I'm still learning how to use that, but that's how I used it for this project.
Okay. I have one question that says, did you have any students and or speakers who were hesitant about being involved in a session that was recorded?
The speakers, no. Students, no one expressed any hesitation. But now that I've learned how to stop the video, so when they come in, I'm sure that some of them were not pleased when they saw the video. Not that they were doing anything wrong, but that day that they were allowed to stay at home, everybody was just comfortable in their own homes. So no.
Okay. I know sometimes students get a little apprehensive when they know there's a recording taking place. I've did a little bit with video posting of discussion boards, and students will just so they know, because they know someone's watching, then they will record themselves multiple times to make it as perfect as they can get it. There's something about being in front of the camera just automatically has them kind of on edge a little bit sometimes.
Going back to that question, I think that it's important to make sure that they do realize it's being recorded, because I don't think they're necessarily, because they're in a Zoom meeting, they may not realize unless you specifically note to them this is being recorded. So that's something to think about as well, I think.
And just make sure that they're aware. Okay, we have one more question. It says, have you considered the issues of accessibility, like having someone live caption the Zoom sessions?
Well, I had not considered that until I attended the last session for AIDN, and I know that that's something that I'm going to have to go back and look at and make sure before next summer we go online that I'll have to take care of that.
I'm just throwing this question out to anybody. Has anyone ran into this issue? Has anyone had accessibility issues trying to do virtual classrooms and had to work around any accommodations? I'm mostly just curious. I haven't ran into that yet. Okay, someone said Kaltura would be a good solution afterwards. You can caption the video before you post it. That's true. If you have a way to caption the recording. What about live? Like if you have someone that's live in Zoom and they need it, right then. I guess that would be an added layer to the challenge. But I like the captioning idea. Maybe that's probably the better workaround. Yeah, it looks like someone else. So yes, it's challenging but doable. Okay. Maybe DSS could provide a live captioner. Okay. Someone said, I'm surprised to hear that people preferred group work. Yeah, a lot of students I know are hesitant about that. So it's interesting. Mary, do you have any? I mean, you shared a lot of feedback that you got from your students. Did you find it surprising that people preferred group work?
I did at first, but we do a lot of group work in our program, and I think they're used to doing that. And it's the way they do it in professional learning communities, which is in the first class they usually take in the program. They really learn how to support each other in a group. And I think it's coming from that, the way that the first class they take in our program is structured.
So they're kind of prepped from the beginning to be able to work in a group.
Right.
And not feel like one person's carrying the burden or anything like that.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that is probably it for the day. Mary, thank you so much for sharing about using Zoom in the classroom today. I just wanted to remind everyone that we have 2 more sessions coming up, one on July 19th and the last one on August the 2nd. We tried to do every other week, but with InstructorCon coming up in a couple of weeks, most of us I think are going to be taking a break for that and heading out that way. But if you can join us for those last 2 meetings, wonderful, fabulous. We'd love to have you. And then I also wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of how to connect with AIDN online through social media. Please, please, please utilize that Slack channel. That's a way for us to stay in touch when we aren't all able to come together online or face-to-face. Have our YouTube channel set up. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you for joining us, and then we hope to see you at the next AIDN Summer Series session. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.